The night felt like it would last forever. The laughter, the clinking of crystal glasses, and the warm glow of the chandelier overhead created the illusion of a perfect evening. But underneath, something was shifting, something I had known for a long time but could no longer ignore. There I was, standing in the corner of the grand ballroom, watching her, the youngest VP in Sterling Financial's history, take her moment. The crowd admired her like she was a queen on her throne, and everyone praised her for everything I couldn't have. I felt the weight of the years of effort, the sleepless nights, the sacrifices. All of it had led to this moment, but not for me, not for the work I'd poured my heart into. Number, it was for her. But tonight, I realized something. It was time to change. I wasn't going to be invisible anymore. It was time for the tables to turn. The difference between us was never just the titles we wore, it was the way we saw the world. From the outside, we were two sisters living the American dream. She was the one everyone admired, the one who made all the right moves, the one who walked through life with a clear path, with the power to bend things to her will. Meanwhile, I was the one on the sidelines, the one who didn't fit into the perfect image they all expected. She moved through rooms like she owned them, flashing a confident smile, while people around her fawned over her accomplishments. Every business deal she touched seemed to turn to gold. I couldn't deny it. She was everything they wanted in a daughter, in a leader. And then there was me, the one who had always been seen as the different one. I had my own path, sure, but it wasn't the corporate one. I poured my heart into creating a business, something that was mine, something real. But none of that mattered to the family. The numbers didn't add up. The results weren't flashy enough. I would sit in silence as they praised her, as they overlooked everything I had worked for. It wasn't just the lack of recognition that hurt. It was the way they made me feel like I wasn't enough. It became clear that I would never be the one they celebrated. The question became, how much longer would I let that define me? How much longer would I stand in the background, watching her rise higher while I stayed stuck? In that moment, I realized it wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving to myself that I was capable of something more. The more I spent time in that world, the world of finance, deals, and glossy successes, the more I realized something I didn't want to face. This wasn't the life I had imagined. Sure, I had built a small business, something I was proud of. But no matter how much I tried to grow it, no matter how hard I worked, the success that the world valued just wasn't mine to claim. I sat at my desk, the glow of my computer screen casting shadows on the walls, my mind swirling. The more I checked the numbers, the more the cold reality set in. The deals were there, the support from the outside was there, but inside I felt like I was slipping. I watched her from afar, the polished suits, the high-profile meetings, the admiration in the eyes of investors and peers. She had it all. And I couldn't help but feel that nagging feeling, the one that told me I would never be able to get close to that level. My creative platform was growing, yes, but it wasn't big enough, not fast enough, not profitable enough. I had worked tirelessly for years, building my dream from the ground up. But every time I looked around, it was as if the world was telling me, this isn't the kind of success we want. This isn't the kind of success that counts. It wasn't the numbers I needed to fix. It wasn't the business. It was me. I was the one falling short. The world wanted results, cold and fast, but I wanted something different. I had spent so much time trying to be something I wasn't, trying to force myself into a world where I wasn't truly welcome. The question haunted me. Was this success worth losing myself for? I knew something was off, but I refused to admit it. For months, I had seen the little signs, subtle shifts in the market, strange coincidences, quiet whispers from investors. But it wasn't until I started digging that I realized the full scope of the betrayal. She was playing a different game, the one I hadn't been invited to. She wasn't just building an empire, she was quietly destroying mine. All those partnerships I'd spent years cultivating, all those relationships I'd worked so hard to earn, they were slipping through my fingers without me even realizing it. It wasn't just business, it was personal. She had quietly leveraged every connection, manipulated every deal, and made sure I was always just a step behind. The truth was slowly unfolding in front of me. Every time I thought I was making progress, every time I felt like I was getting ahead, she was right there, pulling the strings behind the scenes, making sure I couldn't catch up. I had trusted her. She was my sister, my family. But now I saw her for what she truly was, a woman who would stop at nothing to win. And I was her competition. The more I uncovered, the angrier I became. But that anger wasn't just for the deals she'd sabotaged. It was for the lies, the manipulation, the trust I had so willingly given her. And in that moment, I realized that the game had changed. I could no longer play by the rules. If I was going to survive this, I needed to play it smarter. I needed to outwit her, beat her at her own game. The betrayal stung, but it also gave me the clarity I needed. The world had always seen her as the golden child, but now I knew the truth. It wasn't luck or skill, it was deceit, and I was done being the one left in the shadows. I remember the quiet nights spent plotting, when the world around me seemed to sleep while I was wide awake, building my plan. It was a game of patience, of precision. I wasn't going to just fight back. I was going to outsmart her. And the first move was simple: offer her something she couldn't resist. The deal I designed was too good to pass up. A chance to expand, a chance to grow, a chance to shine even brighter. It was the kind of opportunity that would make anyone salivate. But what she didn't know was that it wasn't just a deal. It was a trap. I reached out, playing the part of a willing partner. I made sure the terms were tempting, even a bit risky. She took the bait just as I knew she would. She thought she was getting ahead, that she was stepping into a new world. But all I had done was place her in the perfect position to fall. The more I watched her dive into the deal, the more I felt the rush of power. It wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about showing her that the world wasn't just hers to control. It was about teaching her that success, true success, doesn't come from manipulation or deceit. It comes from building something that stands on its own. Every move she made, every step she took toward sealing that deal, I could almost see her future slipping away. It wasn't just the deal itself, it was everything that came with it. Her investors were wary, the risks were too high. And as she poured more resources into it, she didn't realize how much she was digging her own grave. The more she trusted me, the tighter the noose became. I had set the stage for her to fall, and the satisfaction I felt was almost overwhelming. It was a slow burn, and I knew I had to wait. But it was worth it, because when the fall came, it would be catastrophic. She thought she was winning, but I was already ahead, and soon she would see it. It started slow, just a few whispers here, a few glances there. At first, she didn't notice, like a deer obliviously walking into a trap. But the first signs of her downfall came quietly, like rain on a window, soft but relentless. Then, the storm hit. I watched it all unfold in real time, feeling my pulse quicken as the numbers on the screen dropped lower and lower. It wasn't just the deals she had been riding on, it was everything, all of it, beginning to unravel. The investors she had once charmed were now questioning her every move, pulling back as the cracks in her empire widened. I almost didn't recognize her anymore. The confident woman I had watched for years, the one who always had all the right answers, the one who walked into any room with her head held high, now stood in front of a crowd that no longer believed her. Her eyes were frantic, her voice cracking under the pressure. And still, she tried to hold on to that perfect facade, but the game was over. I could feel the rush of satisfaction as the walls she had so carefully constructed around her began to crumble. I had spent years in the shadows, quietly watching, learning. I knew she wasn't invincible. I knew she was human, just like everyone else. There was a twisted kind of beauty in watching it happen. She had always been the one who got the praise, the applause, the admiration. Now she was fighting to stay afloat in a sea of doubt. And I was the one who had orchestrated it all from behind the scenes, the quiet force that had chipped away at her power, piece by piece. Her empire, the one she had built on lies and manipulation, was now falling apart. The numbers, the deals, the reputation. It was all disintegrating before her eyes, and she couldn't stop it. Her panic was palpable. Her every move was a desperate attempt to save face. But it was too late. The more I watched her, the more I realized something important. It wasn't about her downfall anymore. It was about what I had learned. That no one, not even the most powerful person, is immune to the consequences of their actions. As the last of the deals she had worked so hard for crumbled, I couldn't help but feel something else. It wasn't joy. It wasn't satisfaction. It was something deeper, a realization that no one ever truly wins when they have to destroy everything around them to stay at the top. And in that moment, I knew. I wasn't just winning. I was changing the game. I thought I would feel relief when it happened. The numbers dropped. The deal fell apart. She was losing, and I was winning. But as the chaos unfolded, something strange happened. Instead of the feeling of triumph I had expected, a cold emptiness crept in. I stood in my office, staring at the screen, watching as everything I'd carefully planned, every move I'd made, seemed to come together perfectly. The fall had been spectacular. It felt like the universe was rewarding me for years of quiet struggle. And yet, here I was, with a growing emptiness that refused to leave. I had beaten her, yes. I had finally taken control, grabbed the reins of everything she had spent years building. But what now? I looked at the messages pouring in, congratulating me on the victory. Investors, colleagues, everyone who had once doubted me, now cheering for my success. But there was something unsettling in their praise. It wasn't real. None of it was. I had played this game, and I had won. But the cost was something I could not ignore. The guilt settled in slowly, a feeling I hadn't expected. The satisfaction of outsmarting her, of proving I could do it better, do it right, didn't taste like victory. It tasted like something much darker, much colder. As I watched the numbers in front of me, I thought about the sacrifices, the moments I had missed, the relationships I had destroyed, the things I had done to get here, to take control. And now that I had everything, I couldn't help but wonder, was this really what I wanted? The loneliness was crushing. The emptiness in the room was louder than the celebrations outside my office. I had wanted success, but at what cost? The empire I had built was strong, but it felt hollow. The victories didn't matter if there was no one left to share them with, no one who truly understood. I had outplayed her, but I had also outplayed myself. And the silence, the hollow victory, was a reminder that there was no real win when you lost everything that mattered in the process. For all the praise and the power that came with my success, something inside me felt off. I thought I had achieved everything I wanted, the respect, the recognition, the empire I had worked tirelessly to build. But the victory felt hollow. The more I sat in my office, surrounded by the physical proof of my success, the more I realized what had been lost along the way. I could feel it, deep inside, that gnawing emptiness. The victory, which should have felt so sweet, was starting to taste like dust in my mouth. Yes, I had crushed her, but at what cost? I looked at the people who had cheered for me, the ones who were impressed by the numbers, the deals, and the power I had gained. But I couldn't escape the quiet whisper inside me that asked, is this all there is? I had worked tirelessly for years, building my dream from the ground up. But every time I looked around, it was as if the world was telling me, this isn't the kind of success we want. This isn't the kind of success that counts. I had sacrificed so much to get here. Time, trust, relationships, the people I had loved, the connections I had built. They all felt distant now. I had spent so many years believing that success meant building something monumental, something no one could touch. But as the weeks passed, I saw how fragile it all was. The more I looked at the city outside my window, the more I realized how isolated I had become. The truth I couldn't ignore anymore was that I had achieved all this without truly understanding what mattered. My work, my business, it was thriving. But I had become someone I didn't recognize. The relentless drive that had pushed me to succeed had also pushed everyone else away. The ambition that had fueled my rise had become the thing that kept me apart from the world I used to love. The hardest part of any journey isn't the battles you fight with the world around you. It's the battles you fight within yourself. For so long, I had been consumed by anger, by the need to prove something to everyone, to win at all costs. But now, as I sat there, I began to realize that the real battle was always going to be about healing, about finding peace within myself. The phone rang, breaking the silence in my office. It was a familiar name, one I had avoided for too long. It was a call I knew I had to make, but a part of me still hesitated. I had to face the consequences of my actions, but I wasn't sure I was ready to. Not yet. I could hear the hesitation in her voice when she answered. She knew it too, that nothing would ever be the same again. The last time we talked, it ended in silence, each of us locked in our own world of hurt and resentment. But deep down, I knew I couldn't move forward without making amends. So I called, and when she answered, there was a silence on the other end. Not the comfortable silence we once shared, but the cold, awkward silence of two people who had both hurt each other. But I was determined. I apologized for everything: the manipulation, the lies, the cruelty. And to my surprise, she didn't hang up. Instead, she listened. It wasn't easy. We spent hours talking, digging through the mess we had created, the years of competition, the betrayals, the anger. But as the conversation wore on, something shifted. I could hear the walls between us start to come down, brick by brick, and I realized something important. Redemption isn't about undoing the past. It's about acknowledging it and choosing to move forward with a new understanding. It wasn't a perfect resolution. It wasn't a fairy tale where everything is fixed in a single moment, but it was a start, a new beginning. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was on the right path again, not just for myself, but for us. It wasn't easy, it wasn't quick, but as time passed, I began to understand something I had never fully realized before. True success isn't about achieving the highest title or securing the largest deal. It's about building something that you can stand behind with pride, something that lasts, not just in business, but in life. The road to rebuilding wasn't paved with gold or rewards. It was filled with small, almost invisible steps. The quiet mornings spent reworking the strategy, the long phone calls where the awkwardness still hung between us. But slowly, I could feel the walls between us start to crumble, piece by piece. The bitterness, the resentment, they didn't disappear overnight, but they softened. There was a moment, one late afternoon, when I looked at the city skyline from my office and didn't feel the familiar weight of ambition pressing down on my chest. Instead, I felt something new: peace. The city looked different now, not as a place to conquer, but as a place to live. And there, sitting across from me in a meeting room, was someone I hadn't seen in a long time. The woman who used to be my competitor, my adversary, now sitting beside me, working together towards a common goal. We were no longer fighting each other for a spot at the top. We were building, creating, growing together. And in that moment, I realized just how far we had come. The success I had once chased so relentlessly had changed its meaning. It wasn't about winning anymore. It was about creating something that would last. It was about rebuilding the trust we had lost, about making sure we both had a stake in the future we were now creating. The future was never something I was comfortable with. For years, I had kept my eyes fixed on the next step, always looking ahead, always focused on the finish line. But now I found myself looking at the horizon in a new way. It wasn't about running anymore. It was about walking, breathing, and taking everything in. We had come so far, together. It wasn't just about the company we were building, but about the way we were rebuilding ourselves, our trust, our understanding of what really mattered. For the first time in my life, I wasn't driven by fear or competition. I wasn't trying to outrun the next challenge. I was walking alongside someone who truly understood the value of every step we took. The city stretched before me, vast and full of opportunities, but it no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like a canvas, waiting for us to paint our next chapter. I had learned the hard way that no amount of success could fill the hole inside me, not until I let go of the fear, the rivalry, and the pride. Now, standing side by side with someone I once fought, I felt ready to face whatever was ahead. Not as enemies, but as partners. This time, We weren't just aiming for financial success. We were aiming for something more sustainable, something that would stand the test of time. We knew there would be challenges ahead, moments of doubt, but this time we faced them with an understanding that we didn't need to destroy one another to win. We had both learned a painful lesson that real success wasn't about domination or beating someone else. It was about understanding that there's enough room for everyone at the table, that working together doesn't mean giving up who you are. As I stood in that office, staring out at the endless possibilities ahead, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The future wasn't something to fear anymore. It was something to embrace. And this time, I was ready. Did this story resonate with you? If so, give it a thumbs up, share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe for more stories that dive deep into the complexities of success, failure, and redemption. What's your take on overcoming rivalry and rebuilding trust? Let's talk about it together. See you in the next one.